believing in God. First thing we have to think about, why do people believe in God? First thing is upbringing. Can you see if you can jot down the story about Ned Flanders? Do you remember? I think you go to his house. See if you can jot down all the things that are part of a Christian upbringing. They are, do you remember? Baptism. He has the baby in his arm on the left-hand side. Bible stories. You tell your children Bible stories. He has that in his hand. You go through, and the sitting room is like a church. So you take children to church to teach them how to be a Christian. On the left-hand side, you've got Rod and Todd sitting at their little table. Sunday school helps smaller children to understand how to be a Christian. You pull out the party popper. That reminds you of festivals like Christmas and Easter, which are part of children learning about the meaning of Christianity and making it part of their lives. They get upset. They want Ned to hit you. He prays. Prayer is part of the upbringing. And he says he won't hit you because he'll set a good example. And really, it's watching your parents, if you're a Christian child, it's watching how they bring you up and watching how they are Christians and how being a Christian helps. That makes Christianity part of your upbringing. The next one is religious experience. And you can see here a picture of Mrs. Hawes, who very kindly let me take that picture. And you remember that when you think of the word numinous, you see the N-U-N, you go to Mrs. Hawes and you ask her to tell you about what numinous means. And she says, I can't talk to you. I can feel the presence of God. That's what numinous means. You go downstairs to Mr. Mayer, sitting in his Ferrari. Second religious experience is answered prayer. Then you go next door to Mr. Frost. He says he can't help you because he's changed his whole life to be a priest. Conversion is the third religious experience. And finally, get downstairs. I see Monsieur Chabal, and that's a miracle. It's an event that is impossible. It breaks the laws of science because he's covered in skinny chocolate. The next thing that makes some people believe in God or not believe is the world. So some people look at the whole world and they think, right, well, God definitely must exist. The first is a theory of design. Do you remember? You look at the eye and you look at the bike and you see that they both have evidence of design and purpose. Design is how they are put together. So, for example, your hand is designed, it's got lots of nerve endings, it's got lots of bones that can move around, it can do things. The purpose of your hand is to help you pick things up, to help you create tools, to help you communicate. Everything on the earth shows design and purpose according to a Christian. Therefore, something must have designed it and something must have created its purpose. The only thing powerful enough to do that could be God. They think that the world is too perfect to be put here by chance. It's a good idea for you to be able to give an example and to explain why it has to have a mind behind it. It's a good thing to know that you can do that. Causation, the theory of causation, is the next one. I cannot, sadly, summon up Danny Grukok here out of thin air because you can never make nothing for something from nothing. Only nothing can come from nothing. Does that make sense? I hope so. Most scientists and many Christians believe that at the beginning of time, before the universe existed, there was the Big Bang. That is the first cause. But the question is, what caused that first cause? And this is what we know about the first cause. Do you remember? What we know about the first cause, it has to be powerful, like that big guy there. It has to be creative, like the guy with the palette. It has to be outside of human understanding. Remember, he's got something on his cheek, you look and you see the exploding head. It has to be breaking the laws of science. You look on the floor and there's your science teacher there in a white lab coat and your science teacher's crying and you can see the broken test tubes in his pocket or her pocket. And then finally you see the broken clock. The clock is grey and that suggests that the first cause must be eternal as well. And you can see all of those there. You should be able to know what scientists believe about where the universe came from. That's very important too. I'm not going to talk to you about that, if you remember, because I'm rubbish at this. But you need to talk about the Big Bang, evolution. You could talk about dinosaurs. You could talk about billions of years. Now, you need to also know about Christians and science, because some Christians think that the science explanation to do with the Big Bang is just not true at all, and some Christians think that you can be a Christian and believe in the Big Bang. So, reasons why some Christians think that it's all rubbish is because they believe that the Bible is word for word true. It's like, think of Ned Flanders. So they believe the world is made in 6 days, dinosaurs aren't mentioned in the Bible, so either dinosaurs were normal animals and their big teeth were used for cutting through vegetation, or that dinosaurs didn't exist at all. They certainly, these Christians, and they're called evangelical or fundamentalist Christians, they do not believe in evolution, because in the Bible it says that God created man, in the image of God. And if God created man in the image of God, then clearly we couldn't be apes first. So these people say there is no evolution. So they're very much in disagreement with the scientific theory. The second group of people say that it's fine to be a Christian and a scientist, because they think that if you read the Bible like a poem, so it's got lots of metaphors in, that it all makes sense. So the first words that God says in the Bible are, "Let there be light." And that could be seen as the Big Bang. They say the order of creation fits in exactly with the order of evolution. And that when they look at science, they look at it and just see how incredibly organized it is, how intricate it is. And they say you can't have that level of organization and beauty without some kind of mind behind it to create it all. You need to be able to give an example of moral evil and natural evil. So the example I'm going to give you is murder for moral evil. So that's something that someone chooses to do. It's a deliberate act of another human being. And natural evil is something that happens on its own with nothing to make it happen, no mind to make it happen, such as cancer or an earthquake. Do you remember about reasons why God cannot be real to do with evil? And the word I want you to say is, of course, boo. Benevolent, omnipotent, omniscient. So if God is benevolent, as in all loving, God wouldn't want you to suffer. If God is omnipotent, as in all powerful, then God could stop you from suffering. And if God is omniscient, as in all seeing, God knows everything that's going to happen and so can prevent suffering before it even happens. But this doesn't happen. You suffer from evil. People have terrible experiences. So some people look at those and they say, well, look, if God loved us, if God was all powerful, or if God was all seeing, if God was any one of those, these things wouldn't need to happen. So they say because these things are happening, God cannot be real. But how do Christians respond to this? They respond to this by thinking about what it is about God that means that we can cope with evil and what it is about us. And I asked you to think about that clip from Signs with Mel Gibson. He's standing there and he's looking at his son. And he looks off, sort of up to the side, and he remembers what his wife said, and he realized that God has a plan, that she died, so that terrible suffering happened, so that later on he could save his son. So firstly, that God has a plan. Then he looks and he sees his brother, who's very good at hitting things hard with his bat. That's the skills. Then on the wall there is the baseball bat. That's the tools. So the suggestion there is that God gives us all the skills and the tools to deal with evil. But the key is we have to take the bat off the wall. We have to take action. And the minute that we do fight evil, in the film, remember, there was glasses of water all around the room, and that helped to kill the alien. Water is a symbol of the Holy Spirit. So Christians believe that when we use our skills and our tools to fight evil, then God helps us. But until we do